Welcome and thank you for joining us for this Wheel and Anchor webinar featuring our upcoming journey through the incredible country of Norway. I can tell you that when people ask me what my favorite country to visit is, well, Norway pretty much always finds its way to the top of my list. It's known for its dramatic landscapes, particularly the famous fjords, of course, but also the coastal villages and a way of life that's really tied to nature. This trip is designed to show you Norway beyond the perspective of cruise ships and postcard views. We'll experience the fjords not only from the water, but from the roads that go up, over, and around them, which gives us a much broader perspective than most tourists would get. We'll also explore some of the cities that grew from being fishing villages to modern metropolises, and we'll travel through some incredible mountain passes and steep valleys. We'll see firsthand how the country's modern comforts coexist with its deep rooted traditions. Norway has changed a lot over the past century, particularly the last 30 years or so. It went from being one of the poorest countries in Europe to the richest, and yet it remains one of the most grounded and community minded places across the continent. Over the next 30 minutes or so, I'll take you through the full itinerary day by day and share what makes this particular journey so special. Now, if you've joined us for Wheel and Anchor webinars before, feel free to jump ahead using the time markers below. But if you're new to us, I invite you to stay with me for the next couple of slides to learn a little bit about who we are and how we travel. So before I get into the details about this itinerary, let me share with you a little bit about what makes Wheel and Anchor different, because we're not just another tour company. In fact, we are a community of Canadian travelers united by a shared philosophy, which is that the most meaningful experiences happen when you go beyond the surface and when you share those moments with like-minded people. I'll get into more about that in a moment, but if you're watching this, you probably have a bucket list, just as I do. Most travelers do. But here's what I've learned after over 3 decades of organizing travel for Canadians. The real magic often lies just beyond the must-see places, the bucket list ones, I mean. It's about those unexpected moments, like discovering street food from a vendor that you wouldn't normally think of stopping at, or riding public transit in a city with maybe no destination in particular, just doing it for the sake of feeling what it's like to live there. But perhaps most importantly, it's about who you're sharing those experiences with. There's something uniquely comforting about exploring with fellow Canadians, people who just get you, who speak your language both literally and figuratively, and who often become lifelong friends rather than just fellow travelers. So if you value good conversation and a shared laugh in surprising places, as well as the freedom to connect authentically or explore independently, you may just have found your travel home with us here at Wheel and Anchor. Our travel philosophy centers on two fundamental goals that transform how we experience the world. And those are, in my opinion, being well traveled and well connected. So let me talk a minute about being well traveled, because this doesn't just mean a race to collect passport stamps. Mind you, I do the same. Most of us with passports do, but it's more of a practice of presence. I call it the curious wanderer's mindset, slowing down, tuning in, and then allowing a place to reveal itself on its own terms. When you savor the rhythms, the stories, and everyday rituals around you, a journey shifts from just being a sightseeing tour to being so insightful, becoming a shared experience that shapes you long after you've returned home. If you think about your truly well traveled friends, those are the ones with the most unique stories and experiences, not to mention the learnings from their travels around the world. Secondly, we're all about being well connected. And this is where Wheel and Anchor truly differs from conventional tour operators, because connection just isn't about having fellow travelers. It's about how travel deepens your relationship with the world. We create opportunities on our trips for you to learn anything, like from traditional cooking methods from local families, or maybe engaging with artisans who are preserving centuries old techniques, or sharing stories with locals who are just as curious about Canada as we are about the place that we're visiting. Together, these elements create what I call the Wheel and Anchor transformation. You return home carrying more than just souvenirs. You'll have newfound perspectives that enrich your daily life and lasting friendships that continue inspiring you long after your luggage is unpacked. This is travel that changes you. Just going to say a couple more things before I delve into the details of this trip, because I want to tell you a bit about who we are, who are the people behind Wheel and Anchor. And so, first of all, I'll start with myself. My name is Gordon Dreger. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. I'm the curator of all of the trips that we have on offer here. And I've been working in and around travel for the better part of 35 years. So I've organized trips for Canadians to just about all parts of the globe. But I couldn't pull off all these promises that I've just talked about without an incredible team of people, all of whom are just as dedicated as I am to ensuring that we deliver some of the best experiences for our members. And the person who's perhaps most important for you is our lead trip specialist, Paula Zarnick. And you can see a picture of her here to my right. She is the person, when you drop us a note or give us a call, who will most likely be frontline to make sure that your questions get answered and to assist you in joining us if you decide to join us on this trip or any of our trips. So, Lau, now let's jump into what makes our trip around the majestic fjords of Norway so special. So the plan for this webinar, just so you know how this is going to go, it's pretty straightforward. I'm going to be your virtual guide. I'm going to take you on a little journey around Norway and share what you can expect from this incredible experiential style trip. I'll start off with a geographical overview. I'll show you the map and walk you through the highlights of each day of this adventure. So let me just say a couple words about what our experiential trips are, because this kind of trip is designed for travelers who want to dive deep into a destination through our most robust itineraries. These trips move at a lively pace with 1 to 3 nights in each location, allowing you to cover a wide range of regions by land and sometimes by water, as we do in this trip. You'll enjoy immersive cultural experiences. We have expert local guides and a strong sense of community, which makes each day a new adventure beyond traditional sightseeing. So, as I said, let's take a quick look at the map. Norway, as you probably know, is the westernmost country of Scandinavia, situated on the North Atlantic, and it stretches up far above the Arctic Circle. In fact, half of the country is above the Arctic. But what makes it livable is the fact that the Gulf Stream brings relatively mild weather to the whole coast, which remains ice-free all year round. Now, this trip will take us through some of the most iconic and dramatic landscapes in the country. Although it's long and narrow, Norway's efficient infrastructure makes it surprisingly easy for us to navigate, and this journey gives us a close-up look at both its coast and its inland beauty. We'll start off in the western town of Bergen, or it's a small city, the second largest in Norway. It was once the capital of the country and a hub of maritime trade, nestled between 7 mountains and the sea. From there, we'll travel by rail and embark on one of the most iconic railway lines anywhere on the planet, through the highlands down to the fjord-side village of Flåm. From there, we'll continue through the longest road tunnel in the world and past some more spectacular scenery before arriving in Geiranger, where steep cliffs and waterfalls frame one of Norway's most famous fjords. We'll then switch to a boat and cruise up to Ålesund, a city built in Art Nouveau style, and we'll stay at a historic and authentic Norwegian guest house on the barren but incredibly stunning west coast before following the winding Atlantic road to Trondheim, the spiritual and historic heart of the country. Our last leg will take us on another of Norway's scenic rail journeys south to Oslo, the capital, a city that blends modern design with centuries of tradition. So let me dive in now to the day-by-day details of our Norway's Majestic Fjords program. We'll start off our journey in Bergen. Now, there's no direct flights between Canada and Norway at this time, but there's lots of connections via the major gateways across Europe like Frankfurt, Amsterdam, or London. So it's not a difficult place to get to. After landing in at the international airport, we will be met as usual on all of our trips and brought downtown to our hotel. The rest of the day is yours to settle in, rest, or take a nice walk down the harbor. Bergen has always been a gateway to the fjords. Centuries ago, the Vikings struck out from here, and then the fishermen. Back in the 1970s, of course, Norway discovered offshore oil, and it was a hub for servicing oil platforms. And now it's all about visitors coming from around the world to see the famous fjords of Norway. Bergen's waterfront district, called Bergen, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's a reminder of the era of the Hanseatic League and centuries of cod exports. But what makes Bergen so special is how daily life continues around its history. Fishing boats still come and go, and the city feels lived in, not staged. It's a fitting starting point for a trip where we'll see Norway from the ground up, not just for what it looks like, but for how it actually works. On our first full day, we'll explore this historic port city with its roots in the Hanseatic trading network. Bergen grew, as I said, from the sea, and it still reflects that connection in its streets, its markets, and its working harbor. We'll start off with a quick orientation with our host, which is always a part of the first full day of a trip. That way, they can introduce you to the journey ahead and what it means to travel as part of the Wheel and Anchor community. Then we'll head out on foot with our local guide to get to know what Bergen's historic center is all about. We'll pass the fish market, perhaps the center point of the city, and it's been operating in some form since back in the 1200s. We'll then walk through this area called Bergen, the old Hanseatic wharf, which is lined with original wooden buildings that were once used for trading and storing stockfish. Today, they house galleries and shops and cafes, but they still follow the original medieval layout. From there, we'll take a ride up the funicular to Mount Flåm, where the views stretch over the city and the surrounding islands. Bergen's position, being wedged between the sea and the mountain, has always shaped how it grew. Our walk will end before lunch, which will give you the afternoon to explore at your own pace, and in the evening, we'll come together for a relaxed and wonderful welcome dinner. Today, we'll wave goodbye to Bergen and travel deep into the mountains by rail, following one of Norway's most scenic routes, as we make our way to the village of Flåm, tucked between steep valley walls and the Fjord. Leaving out of Bergen, which is of course at sea level, we'll make our way up into the mountains and change stations at Myrdal, which is almost 900 meters or about 3,000 feet above sea level. Here, we will connect to the Flåm Railway, one of the steepest standard gauge railways in the world. It was built in the 20th century to link remote communities, and the route passes waterfalls, tunnels, and high plateaus before descending sharply into the fjord valley and back to sea level. After checking in to our hotel right in the village of Flåm, we'll head out on a short drive up to the Stegestein viewpoint. This viewing platform extends 30 meters out from the hillside, offering a wide and unobstructed view over the Fjord, one of the narrowest arms of the Sogne Fjord. This will be our first opportunity to get a real wow moment looking out over this incredible fjord. The day will end with dinner at our hotel with time to relax and take in the quiet of this small and isolated village. We'll leave Flåm in the morning and travel overland towards Geiranger, following one of the most iconic routes in Norway with fjords, glaciers, mountain roads, and a local ferry connecting the trip. We'll begin by witnessing one of the incredible bits of infrastructure that Norway has to offer, with the drive through the longest road tunnel in the world. It's 24 kilometers in length. Once we get to the other side, we'll cross the Sogne Fjord by ferry and then continue north to the Boyabrain Glacier, one of the visible arms of Jostedalsbrain, which is mainland Europe's largest ice cap. Our route will continue through the towns of Løn and Stryn, two small towns surrounded by steep cliffs and narrow waterways. In fact, we'll stop for lunch at a quaint little hotel on the Løn Fjord, which is surrounded by idyllic scenery. If the schedule and the weather is fair, we'll stop at the Dalsnibba Skywalk, which is perched 1,500 meters above Geiranger, with truly spectacular views over the fjord and the valley below. We finish the day in Geiranger, a small village at the head of one of Norway's most incredible fjords. On this day, we'll begin with a nice walk, walking in the hills above town, where we'll take in the views of the fjord and the surrounding peaks before traveling by ferry through the waterways to Ålesund. Our morning walk will take us up on a short climb to the Storstefossen, one of the few waterfalls in Norway that you can actually walk behind. The trail is steady and well marked, with views of Geiranger's steep valley and the road that we took to arrive here. By early afternoon, we'll hop the ferry that will take us along the entire length of the Geiranger Fjord towards Ålesund. We'll pass waterfalls, abandoned farms, and cliffs that were once home to summer pastures. We'll pass the Seven Sisters waterfalls on the way, and this route will give us a full view of the Geiranger Fjord, one of Norway's most visited and photographed fjords. By late afternoon, we'll arrive in Ålesund, and we'll check into our hotel and head out for dinner in a local restaurant to end the day in one of Norway's most distinctive coastal cities. On today's excursion, we'll take a closer look at Ålesund, which is a city known for its distinctive Art Nouveau architecture and ties to Norway's fishing history. We start off once again on foot with a guided walking tour through the center of town. The town spread across several islands, and the city became a major hub for shipbuilding and cod exports by the late 19th century. But in 1904, a fire destroyed much of the town. In fact, over 800 new buildings were reconstructed after the fire happened in just a matter of a few years. And most of them were built in Jugendstil, or Art Nouveau style, influenced by the German and Austrian trends of the time. In fact, it's one of the largest concentrations of such architecture anywhere. And another positive outcome from this tragedy is that Ålesund is often noted as one of Europe's first cohesive examples of early 20th century urban planning. After admiring the town and its buildings up close, we'll finish with a climb up to the Axla viewpoint, which offers a wide view over the city, the nearby islands, and the surrounding mountains. The afternoon will be free to explore at your own pace. There's galleries, cafes, or just a nice stroll along the harbor front. If you're up for a little more adventure, you might take a hike in the nearby mountains if the weather permits, as I did on one of my last visits to Ålesund. Excuse the little bit of a wind noise in the background. Hello from the top of Sugar Mountain, Ålesund, Norway. This is one of the most spectacular places I've ever stood. Unfortunately, it's a bit overcast today, and that is the city of Ålesund in the background, and this archipelago of thousands of islands all around me. Thank God this country is in the care of the Norwegians. That's all I can say. Amazing. Today we leave Ålesund and travel through Møre og Romsdal, a region where fjords and mountains meet the sea. Along the way, we cross a mountain pass, take a ferry, and end our day near one of Norway's most unique roads. We'll drive north from the city towards Ørskogfjellet, a mountain pass that once marked the outer limit of where you could travel by road. And from there, we'll continue up to Vestnes and take a short ferry across the Romsdalsfjord, which will remind us how critical that ferries are in this part of Norway. We'll stop in at the city of Molde, which was rebuilt after the Second World War, and it's known for its summertime jazz festival and its public rose gardens. It's really worked to redefine itself with the music, the parks, and the wonderful open waterfront spaces. From there, we'll travel out to the west coast to a unique little guest house with views of the rugged seaside in the North Atlantic. This little spot was favored among our members from our last trip. We'll be continuing along today along the west coast following the Atlantic Road, which is one of Norway's most iconic drives. We'll then head inland and northeast towards Trondheim, a city with deep historical and cultural roots. The so-called Atlantic Road is an 8-kilometer long stretch of highway that links islands and skerries with a series of bridges. It was only finished back in 1989. It was built to withstand harsh weather and is often listed among the world's most scenic roadways. Driving along here where there's not many inhabitants, you'll ask yourself, who would pay for such an expensive bit of roadway in such a remote place? Well, that's Norway. Our route will take us up through Kristiansund, a coastal town built on 4 islands. For centuries, it was known for producing clipfish, which is a dried and salted cod, which is exported to southern Europe, particularly to Portugal and Spain. From there, we'll take another short ferry across the Halsafjord, then continue inland, and the drive will pass through forests, valleys, and small communities, places that have been shaped by the land rather than carved into it. We'll arrive in Trondheim in the late afternoon and check in for the night, with time to settle in before we begin exploring the city's past and present the following day. We'll wake up in Trondheim, and after a delicious breakfast, we'll set out to explore the former Viking capital and one of Norway's most historic cities. It's home to an astonishing cathedral that has drawn pilgrims for nearly 1,000 years. We'll begin the day with a walking tour through Trondheim Center, following the Nidelva River and the old merchant streets that helped shape the city's identity. Founded back in 997 AD, Trondheim was Norway's first capital, and it remains its religious center, anchored by the Nidaros Cathedral, the burial site of St. Olav, and a destination for medieval pilgrims. Our guide will lead us around the small city center, past wooden townhouses, civic buildings, and the quieter corners that reflect both its past as a trading hub and its current role as a university town. Later on, we'll board a small boat for a short cruise along the river, and from there, we'll pass the colorful wharves of Bryggerekka and we'll see the cathedral's towers rising above the city and take in a mix of Trondheim's old and new, a place where history is part of daily life. Today, we'll leave the spectacular coast of Norway and travel by rail from Trondheim to Oslo on another of the country's iconic rail trips. We'll board the train at Trondheim station in the morning and begin our journey south along the so-called Dovre line, a route that is known for its changing terrain and wide open views. The train climbs up into the Dovrefjell mountains where musk oxen and reindeer still roam, before descending into the lowland forests, the farmland, and the lake country as we approach Oslo. The journey will take about 7 hours, and it gives us a clear sense of how Norway's geography shifts inland. On our way, the train will pass by the city of Lillehammer at the northern end of Lake Mjøsa. This town was, of course, famous for the 1994 Olympics, and you might remember the Canadian stars of the day, Elvis Stoyko and Miriam Bedard. When we arrive into Oslo, we'll make a short walk from the station to our hotel, where we'll be for the last couple of days. We'll have an Oslo Pass, which is our key to the city that includes full access to the local transit system and admission to over 30 museums and sites. Given the long days of late spring, you may very well want to venture out that first evening to explore the city. Today, on our last full day, we'll explore Norway's capital, a city that blends royal landmarks, modern design, and a strong connection to the waterfront, another fjord, but not quite like the ones on the west coast. We'll begin the day with a guided walk through the city center, starting up at the Royal Palace and making our way along Karl Johans gate, which is the city's main boulevard. Along the way, we'll pass some of the key institutions, the Parliament, the National Theatre, and the University of Oslo, which all make up the city's civic and cultural life. But one of the most striking landmarks will be the Oslo Opera House, where the sloping roof goes right into the harbor. It's become a public space and a symbol of modern Norway. Our walk will end at Akerbrygge, a redeveloped docklands area which is now home to cafes, galleries, and boardwalks. It's a great place to find a bite of lunch with views over the fjord. The rest of the afternoon will be yours to explore using your Oslo Pass, whether you choose to visit a museum or take a ferry ride or just enjoy a stroll by the waterfront. My personal recommendation, though, is to take a short ferry trip across the harbor to the so-called Bugdøy Peninsula, where you'll find a couple of fascinating museums, including the Kon-Tiki Museum, which showcases the balsa wood raft that explorer Thor Heyerdahl crossed the Pacific on back in 1947. For art fans, you might want to check out Edvard Munch's famous Scream at the museum that was named after him. While this was undoubtedly his most famous work, the museum offers insight into his world of modern art. That evening, we'll meet again for a farewell dinner at another favorite spot of mine, a last chance to toast your fellow travelers and enjoy the last bit of Norwegian cuisine. Today we'll have to say goodbye to Norway and we'll check out after breakfast and head over to Oslo Central Station, where we'll board the Flytoget Airport Express train, which will take us out to Gardermoen Airport in just under 20 minutes. This fabulous train is another bit of my favorite parts of Norway, and it's our last chance to experience its incredible infrastructure. I sure wish that every city had one of these trains. We'll arrive at the modern airport with plenty of time for check-in and departure, and we'll bring with us not only the memories of Norway's landscapes and culture, but also the shared experiences of traveling together through this remarkable part of the world. Now, if you're at all inspired about our trip to Norway, we have plenty of information available about this trip. You'll find it on our website. There's a link in the description below this video on YouTube, which will take you directly to the webpage that has a summary of the trip, and most importantly, a link to download our detailed trip itinerary, where you can get all of the details of what I've just talked about. This also includes prices, terms and conditions, and everything else that you need to know. Of course, if you have any lingering questions or doubts, or if you just wonder if this trip is right for you, obviously we're happy to help. And the best way to get that is to email us or drop a call into Paula. She'll be more than delighted to assist you with any questions to ensure that you have everything you need to join us on this amazing trip. Thank you so much for joining me on this virtual journey covering our trip through the majestic fjords of Norway. I hope it's given you a bit of a glimpse of what you can expect. Now, if you enjoy following our webinars on new trips, you might consider subscribing to our YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button just below this video. That way, every time we post a new video, you'll be alerted and you can be one of the first to find out about it. Otherwise, thanks for taking the time to explore this part of the world with me. If you're not already part of our newsletter list, I invite you to join our community, and perhaps we'll see you on one of our trips soon. I'd love to help you get started on this incredible adventure. Happy travels.